Hey guys, what's up? Ryan521 with part 3 of my top 50 favorite movies of all time. In this part, we're going to be counting down from movies 30 to 21. Not really much of an introduction I need to give. I'm assuming if you guys are watching this, you've seen parts 1 and 2. So let's dive into number 30. So at number 30, we have a dumb comedy, but I still enjoy it nonetheless, and it is Role Models. And this movie stars Paul Rudd and Sean William Scott. Little fun fact for anybody that doesn't know, I'm actually distantly related to Sean William Scott. He's like my third cousin or something like that. I've never met him, but I just know, I don't know him personally, I just know he's somewhere in my family lineage, he's related to me. But anyway, basically, the two main characters in this movie, they're just having a bad day at work. Paul Rudd, basically, they do like these presentations for like this energy drink. Paul Rudd loses it one day, gets in trouble with the law, and essentially what they have to do to stay out of jail is they have to volunteer at this Big Brother program, and Sean William Scott gets paired up with this black kid who has a very vulgar mouth, very vulgar vocabulary, and it's really hard to kind of control him. And Paul Rudd gets paired with the guy that played McLovin in Superbad, another hilarious movie, who's into like all this live action role playing, except they call it Lair in this movie. I think it's like LARP in real life. They call it Lair in this movie. And this movie is just really funny. Just a lot of the jokes work for me. Paul Rudd, I think, is just absolutely hilarious, as is Sean William Scott. And the showdown in this movie, or I should say like the big finale of this movie, is basically all the main characters participating in this giant, like I said, this giant the live action role playing tournament. All the main characters are there. They're all like fake fighting with like these wooden swords and everything. It's just overall, it's a really funny movie. It's formulaic, a lot of the stuff that you expect to happen in a comedy happens in it. I'm not gonna, sugarcoat or anything. I mean, there's really nothing there's nothing like plot-wise that stands out about this movie. It's just really funny, and it consistently made me laugh, and for that reason alone, it's one of my personal favorite comedies. I can watch it anytime. I've seen it multiple times, and I think it's hilarious, and I really recommend you guys check it out. At number 29, we have what I consider to be one of the best action movies ever made. It is Mad Max Fury Road. I was so happy that this movie won more Oscars at the 2016 Oscars than any other movie did last year. I don't know, something about that I just thought was, it doesn't seem like something the Academy would do, but it truly did deserve it. This movie used practical effects masterfully. Not only were the action sequences great, Tom Hardy really did do a great job taking on this role. I love Mel Gibson. I mean, as I said before, I'm a huge fan of like Hacksaw Ridge, and I like his acting roles too, especially in like the Lethal Weapon movies. I don't really have anything against the guy, or regardless of the stuff he said. For that reason alone, I was kind of skeptical about somebody else taking on the role of Mad Max. But ever since I saw Tom Hardy, like in the first, the first like half hour of this movie, I knew, I was like, yeah, this guy, he's definitely owning this role for sure. So he's doing a great job rebooting it. I can't wait for the sequels. Charlize Theron as Furiosa is one of the most badass female characters we've ever had in a movie. Not even female characters, just characters in general. Just a really, really awesome silent warrior. Not a lot of people really talk in this movie, and I kind of like that. When people don't talk, the movie has to rely more on the visuals and the sound editing, and the score to carry it, and it does it really well. This is personally my favorite Mad Max movie. I will say it has been a while since I've seen The Road Warrior, and it has been a while since I saw the original Mad Max, so... but I feel like if I rewatched them, I'd probably still agree that Fury Road is the best. I will say that Thunderdome is a bag of trash, at least in my opinion. I hate that movie so much. But the other three in the franchise are phenomenal, and I think Fury Road, even though it's the newest one, I think it really does stand out, and it is one of the best action movies we've gotten in the last... decade, I would say. One of the best action movies we've seen in a long time, and I'm really excited to see what they do with the future of this franchise, because they killed it with this reboot. Next up at number 28, we have A History of Violence. Now, this movie stars Viggo Mortensen. I actually didn't know until recently it was based off a graphic novel, which is kind of interesting. I'll have to give it a read sometime, maybe. But basically, Viggo Mortensen and his family own a diner in a small town, and they all of a sudden out of the blue get robbed. They show these robbers at the beginning of the movie. They kind of show little bits and pieces of what they're doing in like the first half hour of the movie, and about a half hour in they end up robbing the diner of the main characters. And Viggo Mortensen, just out of nowhere, he just snaps, and he, like, instantly kills these two guys like it's nothing. which raises the question, how was he able to do that? Does this guy have some sort of experience, some sort of past experiences that nobody else knows about? And I won't spoil anything, but throughout the movie, these little bits and pieces of Viggo Mortensen's past begin to come through and begin to, his family finds out about it, and this movie does a really good job. For the length that it is, it's only an hour and a half. I feel like that's the perfect length for it, too. Because I don't think I'm glad they didn't stretch it out too long, because most movies like this, they stretch it out, and I'm fine with long movies, but sometimes I don't like a long movie if it's not justified for being super long, you know what I mean? Like, movies like Batman v Superman could have been, it could have been great if you'd maybe, trimmed it, in half, I feel like Batman v Superman, there's, a good movie in there somewhere, or, the Hobbit movies. You can make a great movie out of those if you just, trim them in half. So this movie, I like that it takes the approach of, being, not needing to stretch it out into, a 2.5 hour movie. This movie knows what it is. It's a story about a guy in a small town. It doesn't need to be super long. You just tell the story, and then you're done, and I don't know, something about that I just really like. But anyway, and then the violence in this movie will turn some people off, I will say that. The violence in this movie is very brutal, but it's not overly utilized. They use it the perfect amount. It's not like it's underutilized either, They use it just enough to show the brutality of this character. That's the word I'm looking for. The brutality of Viggo Mortensen's character. But the way they don't show it that often also shows that he doesn't want to be super violent. You know what I mean? He doesn't want to be who he is. He wants to let this go. But Ed Harris's character just won't stop questioning and pursuing him and trying to get him to admit that he is this Joey guy from his past that he doesn't want to accept. So it is a very, like I said, it's a brutal movie, it's violent, it's very bleak, it has an outstanding ending, I'll say that. It's kind of open-ended, but it is a really great ending, I will say that. And yeah, just everybody does a great job in this movie. I've been saying that a lot, I know, but it is true. All the acting in this movie is phenomenal. Viggo Mortensen, Maria Bello, Ed Harris, William Hurt, they all do a phenomenal job, especially Viggo Mortensen. I think he should have gotten an Oscar for this movie. Yeah, I really recommend you check it out. It's a great kind of story about some guy's past and how he's trying to let go of it, but he just can't. So really, really great drama. Take my love, take my land, take me where I cannot stand. At number 27, guys, we have Serenity. Now, it's probably not that much of a shocker, or maybe it is actually, because I've only made one video about Firefly in my entire channel. But I am a huge Bronco. I'm a big Firefly fan. I've loved it ever since I first discovered it back in 2014. My dad and I binge-watched the whole show when I was on my winter break that year. And then we watched Serenity soon after. And I've rewatched the show a second time and the movie a couple times since then. This movie, I'm not gonna lie, guys, this movie is biased for me. I love it so much just because I feel like it ties perfectly into the world of Firefly. I can sit here and go over the fact that, it should never have been canceled, I can, sit and complain about that for hours on end, but people have already heard, so many people have already done that. But I think for what they had, I think Joss Whedon did a great job wrapping up this universe in the time limit that he had. It's only like a 2-hour movie, but I think he did a really good job, wrapping up this world and giving us some nice closure to these characters. Some of the deaths, of course, do hit me hard because, I didn't want to see these characters die. There's also, especially the main character that dies. I won't spoil it if any of you are Firefly fans, but you haven't seen Serenity. They kill off one of the main characters in the most, shocking and unexpected way possible. And, yeah, it really did suck. I remember watching it for the first time, and it just, my jaw dropped. I was like, oh my god, no, but... yeah, they did a really... I love the way that they wrapped up this whole universe, especially the big revelation they made. They make 2/3 of the way through the movie. They got all the cast to reunite again. I love it. Rest in peace, Ron Glass. Really sad that man is not with us anymore, and that he won't be attending any more Firefly, not conventions, but any more press conferences, or not even press conference. What's the word? Any more fan events, I guess. Really, really miss him. Really sad that we don't have Shepherd Book anymore. But overall, I'm a huge Firefly fan, and this movie really did the universe justice. Joss Whedon did an awesome awesome job wrapping up this universe, and especially for it being, I think this was like his first movie he ever directed, and if this is his first movie he's got, yeah, it's no wonder that they had him direct the Avengers, because yeah, this is an awesome movie to start your career with, dude. Browncoats Unite, absolutely love the world of Firefly and Serenity, awesome job. At number 26 is what I believe to be one of the most underrated movies of all time, and personally my favorite feel-good movie of all time. It's The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. This movie basically revolves around Ben Stiller. You know, he works at Time magazine, and basically, or I think it's Life magazine. Didn't they like switch their name a few years ago? I don't know, one of the two. But basically, he's trying to find this guy played by Shaun is like a really famous photographer, and he sends him like one of his most famous and one of his all-time like favorite photos that he's taken, and it gets lost, or he can't find it. So basically, Ben Stiller has to go to like the Himalayas. He has to travel like all across the world to find Shaun and to get this missing photo. And this movie is basically, the whole purpose of it is just, you know, discovery and, you know, exploring the world and just, you know, getting to learn the different cultures around the world, while also, you know, just being, it's a very, like I said, happy, feel-good movie. You know, Ben Stiller's kind of subdued performance is great. You know, he's very, you know, not as, like, you know, comedic as he usually is in his movies. He's very, like I said, subdued, I think would be a good word for it. The score, or I should, like, not the score, but like the soundtrack, with a lot of songs by Jose Gonzalez, is like, I listen to the soundtrack all the time. It's just, you know, my happy music. I love it. Then Patton Oswalt's supporting character, Kristen Wiig, is great in it. Adam Scott is like really is a jerk in this movie. Well, he plays a lot of jerks, but he does a really good job at it in this movie, I'll say that. And like I said, I know I've said this like 3 times already. It's just a really good feel-good movie, and I just like it. Like I said, the whole you know message of this movie is the purpose of life. Is, you know, you got to get out there and find your purpose, live life to the fullest. You know, we've heard that message before in movies, but I don't think we've ever heard it as well as it's delivered in this movie. At least in no other movie I've ever seen. Maybe there's another movie that tackles this question better. You know, what the meaning of life is, or what your purpose in life is. But for the movies I've seen that deal with this issue, this is personally my favorite one. And like I said, this movie is so happy, and it's very funny at times, especially the Stretch Armstrong hallucination that Ben Stiller has, because he daydreams a lot, the character does, and some of the scenes in it are just really funny and over the top, and there's even like the Bourne Ultimatum, I think, nod when he like jumps through a window and like saves somebody from like a burning building. It's really funny, but yeah, this movie is very funny, very happy, and overall it'll just leave you with a big smile on your face when you're finished with it. It's the ultimate feel-good movie, if you ask me, and this is one of those few movies I could watch it like any day of the week, because it just makes me so happy watching it. So if you guys want a good feel-good movie, check it out. It came out in 2013. It's fairly recent. Not a lot of people knew about it. Flew under a lot of people's radar. I think it's probably the best movie of 2013, or one of the best at least. Love it. At number 25, we have the first of 2 movies where I actually couldn't decide, or I should say the first of 4 movies, because, you know, there's 2 and 2. There's 2 movies that I couldn't decide. I love them both so much. They're so similar, but I just could not decide between them, so I've decided to just group them together. Like I said, the next choice is like, the next 2 movie choice is going to be directly after this one, which is kind of funny, just a funny coincidence. But for this one, it is Zombieland and Shaun of the Dead. Like I said, I really just can't decide which one I like more. I think Shaun of the Dead is a lot more inventive and a lot more creative, and it did do the concept first. But man, even though Shaun of the Dead is super funny, Zombieland just makes me laugh like just an equal amount. You know, it's like stupid American humor, stupid British humor. It's both stupid humor, but the genres are so different that I just can't pick which one I like more. Like I said, I think Shaun of the Dead has probably smarter and wittier humor. But Zombieland just makes me laugh so much that I just can't not put it on this list too. So they're about equal. You know, Shaun of the Dead, Simon Pegg, Nick Frost at their very best. You know, I really I love The World's End, and I really liked Hot Fuzz. But I personally think this is the best of the Cornetto trilogy. even though some of the scenes can get kind of brutal and bloody, especially that one death scene, which I won't spoil for anybody who hasn't seen it, but that one death scene where they rip the guy's like stomach open, that was a little much for me, and I'm a huge Walking Dead fan, so that's saying a lot. But just one of the funniest, most inventive comedies I've ever seen, and Quentin Tarantino himself actually even said this is like one of his favorite movies of the last 20 years, and that's really impressive when Tarantino says that. And then Zombieland, of course. Standouts include, Columbus and Tallahassee. Woody Harrelson totally steals the role in this movie. He just kills it as Tallahassee. He's really funny. For a while, I considered Tallahassee to be like one of my all-time favorite movie characters. He's like the perfect stereotype for like the big gun-toting redneck that would survive the zombie apocalypse. And of course, Emma Stone and Abigail Breslin do a great job as well. Jesse Eisenberg, that's the guy that plays Columbus. I almost said Michael Cera, because I always get those two mixed up. But I couldn't think of his name, so I was just holding off and saying it. Yeah, the whole cast really works, is really what makes Zombieland great. And I'm really excited to hear that they're in talks about doing a second one. And that all four of the cast members are, in on doing a sequel. They're, open to it. Yeah, just two of the funniest movies I've ever seen, really. Can't go wrong with either of them. Like I said, if you're in the mood for maybe more of a little bit of a smarter comedy, I'd say Shaun of the Dead. But if you just want to laugh a ton and not really care, you just want a dumb movie to, dumb popcorn, fun movie to laugh at, then I'd maybe recommend Zombieland. But I love them both for so many similar reasons that I just had to group them together. Both hilarious movies, two of the funniest movies I've ever seen, without a doubt. At number 24, we have the second twofer on this list. Like I said, it's funny that they're both right in a row, right next to each other. That was just a coincidence, I swear. But it is Alien and Aliens. This movie is the opposite from my feelings of Zombieland and Shaun of the Dead. With those movies, I love them both so much because they were so similar, and I couldn't decide which one I like more. This movies, I love them the same equally, but I love them both for different reasons. So let me explain. Starting with Alien. I think Alien is the perfect horror movie. I don't watch a lot of horror movies, unless I hear they're really good, like I'm considering watching like The Babadook and It Follows, movies like that. Unless I hear they're really good, I don't really watch a lot of horror movies because I just think most of the time they sound like garbage, and I don't really care for them that much. But in my opinion, so like I said, I haven't seen a lot of horror movies, but in my opinion, of the ones I have seen, Alien is my all-time favorite. I think that this movie utilizes fear of the unknown perfectly. Doesn't show the alien that often, and when it does, it shows it for like a split second. The costume for this movie was great. It looked better. As much as I did like Covenant, I enjoyed Covenant. You can just so tell the alien in that movie was CGI, though. And this movie did such a great job using the costume, the practical effects. I cannot tell you how much I love practical effects over CGI. But they do such a great job, Ridley Scott does, creating like ambience and horror in this movie, and the lack of music, all the dark, color scheme in this movie. It's always very dark and bleak, and they're out in space, so of course it's a bunch of grays and blacks. The poster for this movie is even great too, with the green seeping through the alien egg. Like I said, just the perfect horror movie experience. The chestburster scene is iconic, one of my all-time, probably in like my top 10 favorite movie scenes of all time. If I would ever make a list, that'd be kind of a cool list to do. And yeah, Sigourney Weaver is perfect as Ellen Ripley. And yeah, this movie's basically flawless, I will say that. This movie, there are some slow parts, but all the slow parts are character building moments. So enough about Alien. Pretty much a perfect movie. Aliens is the perfect action movie, if you ask me. This movie, they go in guns blazing back to the planet. I can't remember the name of the planet. I'm a big Alien fan, but it's been a while since I watched the movie, so I can't remember the name of the planet that they go to. But like I said, they go in guns blazing. They've got, the entire crew. They've got Bill Paxton's character. Once again, rest in peace. That one hit me really hard, Bill Paxton's death. But, the game over, man. Game over. The whole, what the F we're gonna do now? And then just all, it's just a perfect, shoot 'em up action movie. James Cameron, I think, did a great job on T2, as well as some of his other movies. I'm not a huge Avatar fan. But I think he did a great job with a lot of his movies. But this is personally my favorite James Cameron movie, without a doubt. Like I said, just a perfect blend of action, and they even do have some horror elements in here, but this one is more so action. I would say if you want a horror alien movie, watch the original. But yeah, just a really great sequel that delivers the complete. Usually when they change the tone in a sequel, it gets really weird. But they did. It feels so natural in this movie, because in this one they have guns and there's multiple aliens, and they can just go, and they're not on a ship anymore, so they can just shoot them without any consequences. Because they have the acid blood that would burn through the hull of the ship, but they're on the planet now, so it doesn't matter. And then the Alien Queen fight, I don't even have to talk about that. Everybody knows that's just such an iconic movie fight. And like I said, practical effects in both these movies are just outstanding. And it's one of the best. I'm not usually big into sci-fi movies, with the exception of like Star Wars. Because it's like with a sci-fi movie, you have to like get introduced to this whole new world and get to know these new species and this new language and a lot of that stuff, and you only and you have to get to know all of that in 2 hours. But with these movies, I really got invested in them. Sci-fi movies are hard for me to get invested in, but I love these Alien movies. 3 I thought was kind of garbage, 4 I thought was alright, and Covenant I thought was pretty good, Prometheus I thought was pretty good, but these 2 are really the standouts of the Alien franchise. Even though the other ones might not go down in history as well, these 2 will forever remain some of the best sci-fi movies ever created. At number 23, we have Deadpool. I mean, come on, guys. I'm a teenage boy. Of course I'm going to put Deadpool on my list. Deadpool is just... I shouldn't even say that either. My dad loves Deadpool. He thinks it's one of the best superhero movies, ever made. And can you really blame him? Can you really blame us? Because I agree. Deadpool, it's hilarious. This movie took the superhero genre, and it just turned it upside down, and it did such a great job, completely mixing up the formula, and it gave us... So I love all the meta jokes. Ryan Reynolds does. This is probably the role he was born to play. Was Wade Wilson / Deadpool. Everybody in this movie is just hilarious. It's dramatic when it needs to be dramatic. It's action packed when it needs to be action packed. It's hilarious in pretty much every instance where there's no action. Just all of Ryan Reynolds' delivery of the lines and the writing of the lines is just flat out hilarious in this movie. There's not a lot I can say about Deadpool that hasn't been said, because everybody was talking about this movie last year. It was my favorite movie of 2016, and it's still one of my favorite. It's my 3rd favorite superhero movie of all time. There's still 2 more higher up on this list. But I can't really sing Deadpool's praises enough. It's one of those movies where you can watch it and think it's overrated because so many people are praising it, but you can't watch it and say that it's a bad movie, because it's not. This movie did such a great... I gotta really stop saying such a great job. I've been saying that a lot in this series of videos. But it's true. They did a really, really great job just putting a completely different spin on the superhero genre, and it's one of the most interesting movies I've ever seen, and it's exceeded it exceeded my expectations more so than any movie has done in a long time, and that is a big compliment I can give Deadpool. So, props to you guys. Props to you, Ryan Reynolds. You killed it in this movie. It's one of the funniest superhero movies I've ever seen, as well as just one of the funniest movies ever. Remember, the 5th of November, the gunpowder, treason, and plot. At number 22, guys, we have V for Vendetta. This movie is also based off a graphic novel, and it's one of... I can't speak for the graphic novel itself, because I've never read it, but after seeing this movie, I'm really intrigued to, and I'm not even a comic book guy. I'm a huge Walking Dead fan, and I don't even read the Walking Dead comics, so I'm just not a comic guy. But this one actually, it piqued my interest. It makes me really want to go read it. Basically what this movie revolves around, it's this, it's set in this dystopian British, the dystopian society, in Great Britain, where, the government is really overpowering, the police, the fingermen, I think they call them, which is a weird phrase. There's some meaning behind it. But basically they're very controlling, and basically this character named V, who's played by Hugo Weaving, I apologize if I missed some plot details. I actually haven't watched this since last November, because I think it was the 5th of November I actually watched it, but I haven't watched it in almost a year now, so I apologize if I missed some plot details. I'm trying to explain it the best I can remember it. Basically, this character V, played by Hugo Weaving, he wears around one of those theater masks, and he's got, like the black robes on and everything. He's basically like a vigilante. He's regarded as a vigilante by John Hurt, rest in peace John Hurt as well, and the whole British government, but basically he's fighting for the people's rights. And Natalie Portman, he saves Natalie Portman from these fingermen that are gonna, I can't remember if they were gonna like kill her, if they were gonna rape her, or what they were gonna do, but he basically saves her from them, and he kind of takes her under his wing, and they basically start this whole, or he starts this revolution together, and Natalie Portman's kind of just along for the ride, but she eventually becomes a player in it. And this movie, there's a scene involving dominoes where basically V is setting up these dominoes in the shape of a V, because the letter V and the number V, because it's the Roman numeral for 5, play a big part in this movie. And there's a scene where he's setting up all these dominoes, and it's showing people starting to resist against the police, and, realizing, kind of taking V's side, realizing that they're being oppressed. And as soon as, like, all these people start erupting in riots and destroying the city, V knocks over all these dominoes, and it's like, the way the scene is filmed, and the symbolism, and just everything about the scene, I honestly think it's one of the greatest scenes in film history, honestly. I love it so much. It's probably one of my all-time favorite movie scenes, at least probably like in my top 5 or something like that. But this entire movie, the dialogue is written so well. It's so intelligent. They use so many V's in V's dialogue. They literally just call him V, Hugo Weaving's character. You wouldn't even know it's Hugo Weaving. He doesn't even show his face in the whole movie. Unless you recognize his voice, you just wouldn't know it was him. Honestly, this movie is such a great... This is probably the best, like, rising against the government movie I've ever seen. A lot of movies have tried similar concepts, like The Hunger Games is probably the most famous example I can think of. But of all, like, the rising against the government movies I can think of, this movie is the best one. And there's a quote in this movie that I absolutely love. And if I can find it here on IMDb, it's, people should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people. I love it. This entire movie, the dialogue is just exquisite. The acting by Natalie Portman especially is great. The action scenes are great. The use of music, the use of like Beethoven during some of the rioting and the explosion, the fireworks scenes is just hilariously used really well. One of them, it's somewhat of an artsy movie. It can be slow at times as well, but the payoff of it is so great. It's such a fantastically made film. I love it from beginning to end. It's an awesome, awesome movie about revolution. At number 21, guys, close out this video, we have The Boondock Saints. Now, this movie stars Norman Reedus, who many of you may know as Daryl Dixon from The Walking Dead, and Sean Patrick Flannery as these two Irish brothers. And basically what they do is they set out in Boston to kind of take out all these... pretty much all the bad people, the mobsters, all the corrupt people, and they do it kind of in the name of their faith. They're very Catholic. They have these really strict ideologies, and they use a lot of Irish symbolism and Irish phrases and sayings in this movie. And I think the use of Irish culture is what really pushed this movie over the edge for me. Me being part Irish myself, having a lot of Irish in my blood, and embracing my heritage and everything. I just I don't know. I take pride in the fact that I'm part Irish, I guess. But this movie, it's not only a great action movie, it has, like I said, has a lot of great symbolism. Willem Dafoe is great. This movie has the iconic line, "There was a firefight!" But, like I said, it's a great action movie. Lots of great symbolism in it as well. David Delarocco, I believe, I'm sorry. He is great in a supporting role in this movie as well. It's funny at times. It's action-packed at times. And the editing in this movie, if I remember right, is really good as well. I really like it. It's a really cool, fun action movie that also has heart to it as well. Maybe heart isn't the best word, but it also has maybe spirit to it, would be a better word to describe it. It has a meaning. It's not just a mindless shoot-'em-up action movie. There's a meaning behind the violence. These guys have a motivation for doing what they're doing. A motivation I can certainly get behind, because I understand why they're doing it. And I haven't seen the sequel, so I can't say whether or not it's good. I've heard mostly negative things, but the first one, I will say, definitely stands out as one of the better action movies we've gotten in the last, like 20 years. So that's it for you guys. Thanks for watching part 3. Only 2 more parts left to go, 20 through 11, and then 10 through 1. And then we will have counted down my top 50 favorite movies of all time. Let me know what you guys thought of this part of the video, if any of your favorite movies were on this section, what you think of the movies and the list so far. And I will talk to you guys down in the comments, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace out.